What is up, YouTube? And today I'm going to be talking all about Rahu in light of the selector box we are getting for the Wishbinder event. Now, I do have builds for the other two bruisers that are featured, Tiamat and Holden, on my channel, which you can find just by typing in Samool X Holden or Tiamat, doesn't really matter. But for Rahu, we're just going to be talking about him today and how I have him built and how you guys should invest into him and what we should be actually using him for, because this character is a monster in PvP and is also very good in PvE. Now, I'll be showing you guys the PvP build first, and at the end of the video, I'll show you guys a PvE setup and talk about that very briefly. But because most people are going to be pulling him for PvP, we're going to talk about, where you want to bring him and what build is best for him. Now, in terms of lattices, for PvP, he's a pretty lattice-hungry character. The reason why is because he is technically a DPS, even though people think of bruisers as tanks. They're actually DPSs, and because they also have to take damage while doing a lot of damage, they are really stat hungry. So you're going to see that Rahu is no different, although you can kind of skimp by saving some lattices on the last levels. But I do recommend maxing his S1, or I guess level 4ing his S1, not maxing it, because the extra defense down doesn't really matter, because this way you get just more damage on your S1, which is pretty much required, and you also get speed, which is not the biggest thing for him, but still very good. And then his S2 you do want at level 4. Ideally, you will want to max this later on, but not a big deal. The reason why is because he does generate Wrath very quickly if you get this to level 4, and on top of that, you're gaining a ton of defense nodes, and also, like, the extra 3 stacks at the start, or I guess, like, the extra stack at the start, it goes from 2 to 3. It doesn't really do too much, but you have to realize Wrath will give you extra defense, so it makes it so that you can live some openers a lot easier, and also it makes it so that your S3 at the start of battle hits harder. So it's mostly for that initial tankiness and that initial burst. And then for his S3, it's pretty much the same thing. You get it to level 4 because you do want this to hit harder. You also get HP, which is very good on him, even though you don't get as much benefit as defense percent from this. The HP percent still makes you tankier versus things that can defense down you, like Holden and stuff like that, or Plumes. And also the last node here, not really required. It's the same argument for the S2, although you will want to do it eventually, but it's kind of like luxury. So 444 is what you need on Rahu. 455 is like technically, I mean, obviously it's the best because you're going to get just extra boost. Nothing like negative comes out of it, but 455 does give you a little bit more initial tankiness and a little bit more initial burst damage, but it's definitely not required. So I would say 444, what you want to go for. You probably want to max like S1 and S2 first. So 4 into S1, or I guess level 4 S1, and then level 4 S2, and then level 4 S3. So that's what I recommend. Now, in terms of his modules and shells, this is pretty much the setup you want to go for, where you're on Bloodbath, Clothguard, and Bramble. And for Shell, you pretty much always want to run him on Artisan because it does give him some sustain with the shield. And because it scales with your own defense, and because you're getting a ton of defense with Wrath, your shield is absolutely ginormous on Rahu. So it's a very, very good way to make him kind of deal with the problem that he doesn't have lifesteal or innate healing. And also makes it so that if you build him on a full damage build, he's still very tanky. He also gets that 700 defense, which will make him tankier, obviously, make the shield even better. And also just make it so that he hits more because all of his damage scales with defense. So you're thinking, oh, he scales off defense. Are we running full defense mods? You're running 0. So my build has 0. I run crit rate, crit damage, crit damage. I get to 100% crit this way from my shell. And this is like the way you can actually start one-shotting or two-shotting characters as the Etheria effect scales up. This character on the setup is super broken if you actually scale up the Etheria effect. And if you get lucky follow-ups from his S2, which isn't really lucky because it's 50%, you can end up just two-shotting a lot of characters. A good example is like, usually you pick Holden and Rahu together when you're playing RTA because Holden directly counters Rahu because he's red and has defense down and can strip his defense buff. But if you pair them together and they don't get banned, or like one of them doesn't get banned, if Holden S1s lands the defense down, Rahu then S1s into a defense down character, that can almost one-shot characters. And if Rahu's like close on the turn meter, or an ally's close on the turn meter and they bring Rahu again, you just kill the character. Yeah, it's that powerful. It can one-shot, not one-shot, but two-shot Ling Luo's too on FRES builds, which makes him really good on this setup. The only thing is you are squishier, but that is why we're on Artisan, and I think more people are switching to this full damage setup because he is pretty tanky with his Wrath buff, right? The Wrath buff does give you a lot of defense, and he also gets a defense buff, so even though you don't have a lot of defense, you are getting a ton from your passive skills. So that's the setup that I recommend. For substats, you want to aim for crit damage and crit rate and like some defense. HP is okay as well to sprinkle in, but for the most part, you know, something like this setup will make him absolutely insane. And if you think I'm cheating because I have like crazy dupes, I only have one dupe in him, so I do get that attack, defense, and HP percent. This is probably the most important dupe to get online because it will make your modules scale better. But I don't really have him that invested into, as you saw earlier. Now for Shell, you want defense percent for sure on the first passive. Crit rate or crit damage works. It really depends on what modules you have. I was actually hunting for a crit damage one because I do have a lot of crit rate mods on my substats, but I did actually make it work by switching that crit rate around for some crit damage, and now you can see I'm on crit rate. So crit rate, crit damage, both are okay, and then you want hollow damage, Blade of Hollow, or just regular final damage. You don't really need Dauntless because you're just playing to nuke people like an atomic bomb. So that is the setup we are going for. Now, if you want to actually play him in PvE, you can run him on a similar setup. You can actually just run him like pretty much on the same build because Bloodbath's very good for PvE content. You know, Bramble's like okay, you could probably swap that out for like Momentum or something. And you're going to run him on Golden Lion. So this setup's also very good. I actually run this on my Rahu, even though I don't have the right last passive. But you can actually put him on like Momentum and like Swift Rate and whatever else, and it ends up working very well because he S1s a lot. So if you just put him on Golden Lion and just put him on whatever matrix is, ideally Momentum, right? If you're running debuffers, he will do a ton of damage when this ramps up, and it makes him very, very good in areas of content such as like Ethernet Rally, Ember Trek, right? In if my game will load, because it just okay, there we go. My game will load. Even in stuff like this boss, Rengokutsu, you're going to see that a lot of people are using Rahu here just because he's so strong and you can just auto it very easily with him. And you can also use him in stuff like Anasync Echoes. So some of the very hard stages, while it's also Rengokutsu, you're going to see Rahu's like in every single one because of the same reason. He is just really good in long fights, and he's very tanky, and he has a defense down, and he has a defense buff for your team. He's also very good in this stage as well. This one is like one of the hardest ones in my opinion, if not the hardest in Anasync Echoes, and he makes it a joke because his Wrath can redirect the debuffs that you have onto the boss, and this boss has a really annoying debuff that will just make you take extra damage, and if you transfer that onto the boss, you can make the boss take extra damage, and you can do like 50% of its health very, very early on. So just an amazing character. PvP very good. In the hardest stages of PvE, he's amazing as well. So if you have him, you definitely want to build him, especially for PvE at least, because he doesn't really need Lattice for PvE. You might be thinking, oh, why doesn't he need Lattice? Well, in those stages you bring him, there's no real enrage. You're just kind of, you know, eventually winning through his damage and his like follow-ups. So no Lattice will make the runs longer, but still gonna have the same win rate for the most part. So I'll just show you guys like a highlight of why Rahu can be so good. So this is like in the 3500 bracket, which is like top 50. And even though like these bruiser matchups, especially because he has Sanya, Fushu, the two best healers by far in these matchups, kind of stall out forever, you're gonna see with Rahu, if you end up getting kind of lucky, even through an Artisan Shield here on Lilium, that you are pretty much able to, yeah. So when this happened, when I was recording it, I was very, very surprised. But this is at Etheria effect level 1, by the way. Not even like level 2, level 3. So that is why Rahu is just insanely powerful on this DPS setup. That is pretty much it though for Rahu, guys. Let me know in the comments down below how you guys have him built, and if you guys actually run a defense mod on him, because I've tested it on defense mod, and I found that this build is just way more, I mean, obviously it's way more damage, but it's way more fun. You get those dopamine hits a lot easier because you're just two-shotting units like I showed you before. So yeah, thank you for watching. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next video.